Imagine being in a training session or at the university 5 years from now. Are you sitting at your desk in a classroom, taking notes with pen and paper while listening to your teacher? We interviewed Eric Tsui, professor at the Hong Kong Polytech University, to learn more about the future of education. Welcome to this podcast where we explore digital training, technologies, and insurance. I'm Philip, co-founder of the Engage Institute. We offer innovative training solutions for insurance companies worldwide. Do you struggle to capture the knowledge of your experts? Contact us. We'll record engaging interviews with them for you to share. Now, join me as we delve deeper into the education world together. I'm really excited to have you today on the show. You have an impressive experience in tech and education. So just very briefly, I understand that you were born in Hong Kong, but you've been working in Australia for many years, and you have a PhD in artificial intelligence and an MBA. And you spent about half of your career in IT, in industry, basically, and half as an academic.
Right, except that even for the half of my career in IT, I also have one foot in the academic camp, meaning that I'm visiting lecturers regularly at different institutions.
And that's how we met, like many years ago back in Hong Kong, actually. It was PolyU, I think. Yeah? And you're always looking for the
possibly.
Next big thing.
The next big thing, as an IT professional, one of the things that I learned is every few years, there's always a next big thing. Because even if there is not, we will have to cook up the next big thing in order to generate the enthusiasm and the anxiety sometimes, and the business, of course.
So I would like to jump right into it. Hey, how is education evolving due to new technologies? Do technologies have an impact on education, according to you?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, among the various industries, I have to say that looking back, the technology influence and impact on education has not been substantial, put it this way. There are impacts, of course. There is the use of online teaching. There is use of learning management systems to interact with students, to provide online discussion bulletin boards, to collect assignments online, and to even mark assignments online and distribute back to the students. However, when you look at that, this is enabling existing processes. And compared to other industries, until COVID-19 hits, the technology has not been playing a significant and I should say a respectful role among the people in academia. Now it is significantly improved in terms of adoption, in terms of the sophisticated use, but still got a long way to go.
So you think that the pandemic has really changed academia? That's how you see it?
Definitely. I think from whatever reports that you're receiving, you will see that the university has been forced to react appropriately in order to continue with the delivery of education, despite the reduction of students, irrespectively. And technology is one of the saviors. Otherwise, for those universities who cannot or refuse to adopt technology, they will have to shut down, and that's clearly is not the way to go.
And do you expect this to be that way in the next few years? Or is it just during the pandemic and everybody's going to go back to their old habits? What's your take on that?
Now, that depends. That's a very good question. That depends on the leadership and the culture of the university. I have thought about this before, and there are, I suppose, different possible scenarios. For those universities who are truly active learning about what they have benefited from the use of technology during COVID-19, they would harness and salvage the use or continue to use at least part of the good strategies that technology have enhanced the teaching and learning after the pandemic is over, or gradually when the pandemic subsides. They will still continue to use online teaching to supplement the face-to-face and without going back to face-to-face. But at the other end of the extreme, you are right. There is hopefully a smaller proportion of university who just treat the pandemic as an abnormal period during our life, and then the behavior reverts back to fully face-to-face teaching after the pandemic is over, which obviously is no good. That means they haven't learned really anything from benefiting the technologies using during the COVID-19 period.
Okay, we'll see which universities go that way and go back to the old times. I'm quite excited or interested to see how many of them will think, okay, now we don't need it anymore. And the ones will say, we'll go for the future. So in that, I mean, you spoke about online courses, famous, massive, open online courses, the MOOCs. Are these going to change? Or are they changing?
Well, I'm right in the thick of it. I'm the leader of 2 MOOCs on ethics and also offering a professional certificate as well. Now, MOOCs is always changing, right? I mean, may not be the content, but the business model and the way that MOOCs are being adopted by learners, it's constantly changing, right? And in the last few years, I think one of the things that has benefited from the MOOCs is people starting to take that and gain credit as some kind of non-degree accreditations that they have accumulated. And that's especially at the skill level, because in the 21st century, knowledge workers have a big skill gap. University curriculum are just not moving fast enough to close those skill gap and equip graduates with the right skills. And therefore, the shortfall in those skills can very much be remedied, at least partially remedied, by taking some of the MOOC courses. And that's why you see that there's still quite a number of people taking the MOOC courses, gaining digital badges and digital certificates. And I believe this is the way to go. And the situation will accelerate, because up to now, I still think that university is not moving fast enough to close the skill gap. So there's always a market for skills gaining for graduates, even though that you are taking formal qualification at the university. Even for PolyU, for example, we are right now looking into offering digital badges for staff first, and then gradually, possibly, to students.
How are MOOCs going to change? The first thing you're mentioning here is the badges will make a difference. Is that the one change that we can see, or do we expect still to have videos, quizzes, just the badges, or the next add-on to it?
There are two aspects to it. The badges will come with more popularity, right? Then there's also the accumulation of micro-credentials. So in other words, gradually, university may relax the rules so that a certain part of the degree can be taken on campus programs, and then part of the optional courses can be taken from one of the approved third-party providers. That's another trend that we are seeing. Now, with regard to the content of the MOOCs, until the platform has improved, I don't think there's too much of a new types of pedagogies being involved. Then again, the teacher may take a MOOC back into the classroom. So in other words, like many of our teachers, they direct the students to take part of the MOOC before the class, and then when they are having the class, they save the time. Instead of doing the lectures, they elaborate on some more in-depth discussions. So I would say that that is kind of a more innovative uses of the MOOC, not necessarily based on the content and the videos that's being recorded in the MOOC.
But the use of it, like in a blended learning setup, basically.
That's could right. Be the new way. Pedagogies.
Okay. And when you speak about badges, micro-credentials, especially the badges, do you see, for example, these badges to be stored on the blockchain? That's something, NFTs, etc. Do you see this
at this
happening?
Stage maybe too far-fetched from university. University administrators are still coming to grips with what are digital badges and how do we benefit from it, which platform we should use, and how we're going to manage these badges and so forth. So the NFT and the blockchain elements may be the next step, but not right now. Otherwise, they complicate the picture too much.
Okay. Now you speak about MOOCs, how they change. My colleague Patrice loves artificial intelligence, and you are an AI specialist. How can AI contribute to the evolution of MOOCs, or can it?
Well, of course, many ways. AI, in layman term, it's about mimicking the human decision-making. So one simple way to apply AI is to discover, recommend courses or a series of courses for someone who would be appropriate to take these courses to some kind of an elevated stage of accomplishment. That's at the course level. And within the course level, AI can also be applied to detect the learning proficiency, effectiveness of how a learner progresses. For example, if he or she has a number of bad attempts at a quiz, maybe direct this person to do some remedial learning before coming back to attempt that quiz. So these are all part and parcel of how AI can help. So in various aspects, I think the sky is the limit and up to your imagination.
Clear. And I guess also AI could be used to generating courses, maybe doing some mass customization of these courses. Is that something that you see coming?
Yes, and also, well, that's similar to what I've just said, personalizing the learning path, personalizing the learning content, personalizing the learning sequence, and also discovering the other people, peers that are in your locality or in other places that you may wish to connect because you have the same interest in learning the same topic.
Okay. Now, once we have these MOOCs evolving with the badges, we have AI that plays a massive role over the next few years. Another big element that could be added to training, I guess, is the famous Metaverse. Or could it be? Is that useful for training?
In my opinion, right now, Metaverse is still at an early stage. Yes, it does look like that it is effective for supporting training because of the surreal environment, which other collaboration tools just cannot provide, right? However, whether that actually will translate to a more in-depth and effectiveness of learning outcome, that remains to be decided. And I think that very much depends on the nature of the material that needs to be learned.
Okay. But couldn't that be a more immersive environment? As you said, like the MOOCs, you're watching videos, you're answering questions, reading text. But in the metaverse, it's a game. You go around, you can have an experience, you can interact with others in a way that you cannot redo in MOOCs, or?
That's right. So in the MOOCs, you can discuss with other parties on an online forum, but in most cases, you are still learning directly and interacting with the content, with the web server, right? Whereas in a metaverse environment, whatever you're doing, supposedly in that three-dimensional environment, there could be other parties speaking to you, observing you, interacting with you, and there could be objects that you can touch, which may give you some additional sensing, and that sensing may trigger the other forms of learning or whatever, right?
And to be maybe invented yet, and that would be my next question. Like, will learning theories and pedagogies actually have to adapt with the metaverse? Are there new things they can do with that?
Well, that has to come later. Up to now, the common learning theories, the most advanced one, in my view, is the connectivism, which is advocating people to learn from external networks, which is right. So the metaverse is one of them. Things that are outside the classroom, outside what the teacher teaches you, outside your peers. You have to go beyond that because much of the knowledge remains in the network outside of your organization. So connectivism points us in the right direction. But at this stage, there are no theories being drawn up with particular reference to how to benefit from learning in a metaverse environment, in my opinion.
Okay. And I haven't seen personally, but are there some theories for the metaverse at the moment where people say, no, it's going to be a different way of teaching?
I haven't read about it, but that doesn't mean that there is none. I haven't read about it, and me and my colleagues are still, should I say, experimenting. In fact, for the last 2 weeks, I've been offering free presentations inside the metaverse environment, and I've been collecting feedback from people.
Oh, really?
So far, yes, the feedback
Which
has been very
metaverse are you
positive.
using? Which virtual world, actually, I guess?
I'm using spatial.io, and I'm checking out frames.io as well.
Okay. Because maybe for our listeners, I mean, a lot of them know what the metaverse is, but my understanding is the metaverse is an interconnection of different types of virtual worlds where you have an avatar and you can evolve. Is that the definition you find satisfactory?
And it's very surreal. In another application, I've set up a gallery of our past achievements of our research center, and that's 5 rooms interconnected. So people can look at the main hall, people can look at the training that we have provided, people look at the awards that we have received, people look at the competitions that we have held and different things in different halls. They can engage in discussions. They can put sticky notes across the displays so that we can also see what their comments are. So we are still learning about what exactly the metaverse environment provides that existing environments do not.
And from your experience, Eric, how do learners adapt the metaverse? How do they feel comfortable in it?
Well, so far, I've used the metaverse environment to present to about, maybe 8,000 people. So far,
Only?
Yes, well, because there was one in China, there were 7,600 people.
Okay.
So you cannot imagine the tiny scale. It broke everything else to pieces. All right. Well, the general feedback is that people are excited about the metaverse environment. Most people like it. Now, improvement are needed because the PowerPoint screen in the metaverse actually is only a portion of the real screen. So definitely that's a strain on the eye. That's not too good. But much is compensated. I mean, the pleasure, the experience is being compensated by people who can walk around in the metaverse. And what I've done is in a presentation, you may have 20 slides. I actually put up some of those key slides as hanging photos inside the metaverse. So for those who come into the room, while they're listening, if they want to spend a little bit of time on something that I've touched on, they can actually walk to the hanging slides and then view that for a much longer time and ponder about whatever they want to think, and they can put the sticky notes on it, and they can garner discussions among their peers. So I'm trying to explore some potential benefits that the metaverse can provide, in addition to just providing an immersive, three-dimensional presentation feeling, put it this way.
Okay. And did you get any feedback from students? So early feedbacks on how much they like it, what they could see being improved?
Well, if I consider those learners as students, yes, we haven't tried it in a real class yet because it's better to try it in an audience so that we are confident that we can take it into a real classroom or on campus. But let me continue with the feedback. People are excited about the metaverse environment. However, it's also true that at this stage, for clarity purposes, many people still prefer using the traditional PowerPoint inside Zoom or inside MS Teams for the sake of clarity and visibility, right? And that is something that's coming back to me very strongly. So that's a good feedback because that keep my feet on the ground. I have to keep thinking about what is that in Metaverse that is superior to existing setup that make people have a wow effect in there. Another thing I've tried is, in fact, I'm trying now, which is set up an environment so that every year after I finish teaching a subject, I ask students to submit a project, the deliverables, and I discuss with the students about the summary of their proposal, highlighting the high points and so forth. And I'm going to record that together with student discussion in the Metaverse and keep it as part of a repository. So over the years, I have a rolling set of these things, and I can imagine this can only benefit the future generation of students because they can go back and say, 3 years ago, this group of students tackled this project and the professor gave them this feedback. So I should learn from this feedback and be able to improve my tackling of the project this year.
And the metaverse is maybe it's not something replacing, like for now we use it with PowerPoints and a bit like a digital version of a university, but maybe I see it as a game. So people can basically go for quests, experience things. It does not replace the MOOCs. It does not replace the face-to-face training in the university, but it's a complete different new learning activity where you go to conquer knowledge, basically, and to experience things that you could not experience in the physical world.
Agreed. Nothing will replace face-to-face interactions in the classroom and so forth. That will continue. It's just that its proportion may become less and less because other setups may be equally or more powerful.
Now we're entering the metaverse most of the time through regular computers, right? But we have augmented reality and virtual reality making their way in the world quite fast now. How can they change the way we're going to learn in the metaverse in the future or in the near future?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I'm not an expert in any one of those fields, but applying my IT knowledge over the decades, I would say that we should expect VR, AR, and the metaverse to converge, right? So much of the VR, AR technologies, they will be part of a mega metropolis of metaverse in the years to come. And we've seen that this kind of phenomena happening many times in the IT industry. Things do consolidate because we don't need these scattered mountains of similar technologies on knowledge visualization and so forth. It's much better if they combine forces and get into a single space with powerful features.
And after that consolidation, I like what you're saying, it might lead to a complete different new world for education that we even have no idea about right now, that we can all not even imagine, I guess.
Well, I can imagine, although I can dream about it. And again, applying my IT knowledge, when things consolidate, there will be standards to connect different metaverse together. So every university would have its metaverse equivalent. So we can bolt in and connect just like USB and disconnect different metaverse from university, from companies, from museums, from libraries, right? So that it create unique learning environments for the learner.
So interoperability will be something important in what you're saying.
Definitely. We don't want the VHS beta tape in the video tape industry to occur again.
So I think we touched a little bit on that, but how could teachers and educators use gamification and the digital badging to make learning a bit more engaging? Is there a quick tip on that?
Well, it's an interesting question. Again, it depends on the student's behavior, right? And Eastern and Western student background differ enormously, right? Students in the Asian societies tend to be more introverts. At least that's how they behave in the class, right? They are more reactive, they are silent, and they even hesitate to ask questions. Whereas the students in the Western world, in Western universities, my experience, and I was told as well, that they are far more proactive and they often speak up and offer their opinion, which is great, right? So the same teacher would not apply the same strategy to the same class, right? For Asian teachers, I think they're gradually, well, they're always thinking about ways to stimulate an active learning class. And 1 hour before this, I was reading another document from our university about how to enable teachers to design more active learning classes. So definitely, that means at the moment it's not active enough, right? So active learning classes and gamifications and digital badges is the way to go, because another behavior, probably not so good behavior of Asian students, is many of them are mark seeking. Mark seeking means that they go for the marks rather than the learning. Whereas with Western students, there's a high proportion of students who truly want to learn more and care less so about exactly what marks they're getting, right?
Eric, this would have a big impact on exactly the gamification types that are implemented. Yeah.
So hopefully I'm just one step ahead of the game. So I'm designing a gamification platform on MOOC that actually will try to tease out the different stereotypes of Asian student learning behavior. I'm detecting those. We'll go straight into the quiz and attempt, and never play any of the videos, right? And those are mark-seeking ones, compared to those who are true learners and they go through the sequence as by the instructor and then take the quiz. If they don't get it right, they go back and learn more and attempt the quiz again. So I'm trying to identify 6 different types of learners based on their behavior in going through a MOOC, going through the videos, taking the quizzes, and also participating in the bulletin board and more, and try to analyze the sequence and the frequency of this behavior in order to determine the exact stereotype.
And you see a very big cultural difference, that's what you said, in the behavior to learn. That's interesting.
Yes, exactly, because even I don't need the games. Can tell that for the last 3 years, I've been conducting what we call the global classroom. So I've expanded PolyU classroom to include students online from Western institutions. And the result is very obvious. Our students are stunned to see that, wow, in fact, their Western counterparts are so proactive in asking questions and sharing their opinions. So that's got a good flow-on effect to our students, because they now learn that that's not the way the students behave around the world.
Yeah, cultural differences. Very interesting. I remember in Hong Kong, I was teaching languages at some point, and I was quite amazed actually by the behavior of students over there. It was quite impressive to me. Anyway, so now, depending on the cultures or not, the students who are learning, is storytelling having an impact on them? Or do you think like the guys who are just going for the marks, they would just try and take the test again and again until they make it? Or is storytelling something that could make things evolve?
Well, storytelling are increasingly being adopted. I'm not sure whether the students themselves know that by doing more storytelling, it will help them to understand things better, to express better, and build up confidence in speaking and communications. Hopefully they do, but storytelling is happening more and more, both from the teacher's side and from the student's side, right? The teacher's side, the teachers are increasingly using digital media to disseminate key stories, lessons learned to their students. And from the student side, for the last few years, me and my colleagues have been asking students to record up to 3 minutes reflective journal about what they've learned in a particular course, in a particular project, again, using the digital media. In fact, precisely the tool is Flipgrid, which is now called Flip, owned by Microsoft. So we create an area where every student in the class can just, at the ease of clicking a button, they can record up to 3 minutes, just showing the face and talk in front of the smartphone or a camera and express about their reflection on a particular project or a particular course. So that's been going on, and I imagine that would only intensify in the years to come.
And what's the reaction from the students on that?
I can only assume that it's positive. I have not had any complaints or any disgruntled comments about recording videos. And you got to understand, every year we have a new breed of students coming in, and these are not even the millennials. It's born in the 21st century. Right?
Yes.
So they're getting younger and younger and more tech savvy, which means that, in fact, the pendulum has swung the other way. These days I've heard about youngsters who are very nervous in attending a face-to-face meeting because they rarely attend these meetings.
Yeah, it's incredible evolution here. No, we're getting close to the end here. So I know that you've worked on several projects as teaching innovations at the University PolyU in Hong Kong. Can you give us a brief overview of something
Sure.
of these projects and what are they?
Let me mention three. One I've already mentioned, which is the global classroom. So that is, I suppose that's a perfect illustration of how to use existing technology, but by mixing different students into a class, an online class, online and face-to-face class. And that produced amazing effects because especially due to COVID-19, traveling was very much prohibited or restricted. So therefore, much of our internationalization program at PolyU and other overseas universities has been suspended. So that means that for years, our students were not able to gain the leadership skills and the cross-cultural skills that they're supposed to gain when they're enrolled in the internationalization program. So to counteract that, we introduced the global classroom. So in our normal classes, we also pre-organize through reorganization. We also combine together with classes for Western universities, and together we have the class, honestly, right? And then we can have each professor from each university giving part of the course, and then students can have role play of asking questions, answering questions. We can go deeper in the collaboration. We can ask both group of students to participate in the bulletin board throughout the rest of the semester and discuss points, which is great. And we are now going into the deepest level of collaboration, which is to engineer projects which require students from both universities to form a team, and they have to collaborate, they have to communicate, they have to discuss, they have to co-create the deliverable. So very exciting. So that's one project with us called the Global Classroom, which is a part of our internationalization at home.
And that's all very interesting. And you answered a question I had in mind listening to you. Basically, you have two universities there, one maybe in the UK or the US that you're working with, but we could have several universities joining global classrooms over time, your whole network of universities potentially.
Exactly. Last year, my students have in one subject, they have been exposed to co-learn with 4 other universities, one in South Africa, 2 in the US, and 1 in Russia. So they highly appreciate that. And that gives them a very appreciation of the intercultural divide.
Clear. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And very quickly, now I finished the other 2.
Please, yeah.
The second project that I've done, well, it's an ongoing project again. It's about a personal learning network. Everyone is unique. So the fact that we're having these students in the class just because they just enroll, but everyone have their own preferences and so forth. So I use RSS technology, which is some kind of alerts and subscription, and subscribe to the subject that I'm teaching, and then to help students to configure using public domain, Google and other tools, a personal learning network, so that almost every hour we get new feeds, new articles coming in. So everyone can look at this article, they can read it, they can annotate it, they can share it, they can co-learn together, right? So effectively, everybody is becoming the eyes and ears of the whole class. I learn from my students posting because I don't have time to search for everything. But with RSS, the article comes to us automatically. So it's been wonderful. I've been running that for 12 years. And now the 5 departments in PolyU are using it. And more than 20 subjects have incorporated this. And looking back, more than 2,000 students have configured their personal learning environment. And they can continue to use it even after the semester is over, even after they have graduated, which is wonderful. So one of the benefits of this tool is a lifelong learning trait, because learning is supposed to be perpetual, learning not supposed to be during the semester, and certainly not just for the sake of the degree. Okay?
Clear. That's even more true now in society we have. Lifelong learning is key. And you had a last project, you said.
Yes, the last project also very exciting. It's about co-creation of the course syllabus with students, right, in some rapidly advancing business and technology areas. So
you ask them what they want to learn, basically.
Yes, but we don't just ask them to come up with the answer. It goes through a scenario development process. So I ask students, I give a priming question. For example, how will the Metaverse evolve in the next 5 years? Well, I don't know, but we show them how to do scenario development by identifying world trends and driving forces, by looking at informed data, by looking at the risk and prioritizing the risk. So with that, they can come up with a ranked set of scenarios. So at the end of the semester, I collect all these scenarios. Every student generate 4. So easily I can collect hundreds of scenarios. I look at all these scenarios, and some of those are wonderful. I've never thought about those concepts, and the students prove to me that they've done some self-learning, and they come up with some brilliant ideas with substantiation. So I look at what the students have submitted and evaluate those who are starting to emerge or starting to becoming true. So I adjust the syllabus for the delivery for the next year. So that's how I incorporate the student input. And that also been very successful. And I'm very proud of that project.
Sounds really interesting, yes. So now we're nearing the end of our very interesting discussion. Do you see any obstacles to overcome in the times ahead to make training really optimal?
Yes. In fact, unfortunately, people and culture remains the biggest obstacle, right? While I'm very upbeat about driving the change and getting myself as a role model, as an exemplar, I have to say that not every teachers react the same, right? Some teachers are still quite adamant to follow the original style. And being a research university is also have a lot of pressure on us, because most academics, nearly all of us, are under strong pressure to publish, right? So,
yes,
but good teaching takes a lot of time, right? So how do you split your time appropriately so that you can keep up your publication record and at the same time leading a delightful group of students achieving their outcomes? So that's also another very, very difficult thing to balance. And then also university administrators, they have to appreciate what we're doing, and they have to facilitate whatever that's needed. Luckily, for IT investment, that's not too hard to ask for, and that's usually is the easier problem, but still, we need the support of university administrators so that they can come up with policies and guidelines that are supportive of this transitioning to more and more online and hybrid teaching.
Okay. All right. So these are substantial obstacles to handle. Yes. So Eric, thank you very much for this very insightful discussion. We've covered a lot of topics, actually.
We did.
The MOOCs, Metaverse, AI, badging, very, very interesting and interesting projects at PolyU. So thank you very much for your time. And
thank you very much.
Let's see each other in the Metaverse sometime soon in one of your classes.
Okay, wonderful. I look forward to that opportunity, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for today's episode, where we brought you some of the latest and greatest from the training, technology, and innovation worlds. Thanks for listening, and thanks to our guests for sharing their valuable insight with us. If you struggle to capture the knowledge of your experts, contact us. We'll record engaging interviews with them for you to share. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find us on YouTube or LinkedIn, where you can watch the full video of this interview and many others. This interview was made possible thanks to our colleagues Laura Servadio for the coordination of this interview and Patrice Séjalon for a powerful remote interview studio based on AI. Until next time, stay safe and stay insured. Cheers!